8 thoroughbred racing horses have died 7 months into this racing season. That's on top of the 25 horses that were killed or had to be euthanased during the last full thoroughbred racing year, and the trend's not getting any better. Most of the horses suffered fractures or had cardiac incidents during races. The latest figures were released to Checkpoint following an interview we did last night with the Rodeo Cowboys Association about the death of a horse during a weekend event. Earlier I spoke to Martin Burns from New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing and asked what he thought of the number of horses killed in his industry last season.
Well, in terms of our total number of starters, so in horse races last season, we had 26,666 horses starts in horse races. So if you put the proportion, I suppose, against the number of starters, it's quite a low number. So, but the incidence is, I guess it's an active sport. They're unpredictable, but to an extent, as I say, unpredictable in the event of it happening. But in terms of normality over a number of years, there's a certain percentage, a small proportion that tend to occur.
Sorry, I'm not clear what you think of that number, whether you think it's high, whether you think it's acceptable.
It's in proportion to, say, other countries, it's a very low number. We're at the bottom end of the range in terms of comparisons with other thoroughbred racing jurisdictions, and that's probably a consequence of our race surfaces and our breeding of horses and how we, how they're trained and conditioned. So in that context, the number is favourable, but to the extent that any horse breaks down, that's obviously a concern, both in terms of that individual horse, but for the people that are, connected to it.
Okay, so you presented some statistics there to us in terms of the number of starts versus the number of deaths. So you're a billion dollar a year industry, roundabout, racing. So
Sure.
How many can you afford to lose?
Well, we wouldn't want to see any. Any time it happens, as I say, it's a concern not just for the industry, but for the people that have lost their animal that they've been caring for. So I just can't say that there's a good number for the number of fatalities that there would be. So
there is no acceptable death rate of horses in this sport, in your view?
Well, I suppose in my view, the optimum level would be none. But, as I said before, racing is, it's unpredictable to the extent that, there's so many horses participate every year. And, as in any sport, people in sport get injured, animals in sport get injured. So, and sometimes the extent of the injuries means that, a euthanasia for the horse is the most humane the most humane consequence.
Okay,
for that animal.
So a couple of things there. Euthanasia is a humane act. How do you euthanize these horses? Are you shooting them, or how exactly?
No, they're given a massive dose of barbiturates, so it's a painkiller. So the vet administers that to the horse, as soon as he's able or she's able, and then the horse basically is put to sleep.
So if you're saying that the loss of any animal is, not acceptable, how do you reconcile that with the fact that you've got 25 deaths of horses in one racing season?
It's, as I said before, I don't have an acceptable level.
You also raised the issue of people being injured in sport, but I suppose critics would say that people choose to participate in sport. Horses don't choose to participate in this sport. What do you think of that?
Well, I think I understand where the argument comes from.
Yeah.
But I suppose the point of view is that the horses are bred, and they have been bred for, centuries, to be fit and strong and conditioned, and are conditioned and trained for racing. They also have a mind and a personality of their own. And some horses actually are unwilling to race, and when that's the case, they don't really have a career in racing, and they find a career elsewhere, and as a ridden horse or a hack. So those, I think that sort of premise has to be sort of moderated by those points.
Why have you got these death rates? So last year 25, right? This year so far you say 8. What is the cause? I know you're talking about fractures, but what is leading to fractures? What is leading to the horses collapsing or dying of heart conditions? The fractures in particular, what is causing them?
Often it's incidences in the running, so horses can, one horse can collide with another and then there's a trip. So that comes down into obviously the skill and conduct of the races, which are, well controlled by our stewards, and the jockeys are, well trained as well, and obviously have a mind for their own welfare. So those rare instances where horses will collide and then may end up with those injuries is one of the causes. And otherwise, causes are, potentially related to, I guess, undiagnosed fractures potentially, and that's an area of research that's been looked into by Massey University. So that we partner with Massey University in a lot of areas, and one of them is in the research into causes of incidences like this.
So just explain to me where you think the line in the sand is, this is for entertainment purposes, the racing of these animals. So in terms of entertainment purposes, why should the industry be allowed to continue if horses are being killed in the course of this entertainment?
Well, I think, we've got to, I suppose, balance all the arguments as well. I mean, there's you say a form of entertainment. It's a form of enjoyment and pastime for large numbers of people who, whether they're involved in breeding or training the horses, whether they're employed by stables, whether they attend the race meetings as a form of fellowship and companionship. And, there's fewer and fewer forms of assembly, I suppose, in our community nowadays where people all come together from, various places. And, so it's a fellowship thing as well. So it's not just a sport for entertainment. I think it's a lifestyle, it's an economy, it's and a way of life for so many people, and part of our culture.
So the lifestyle, economy and way of life, that outweighs the death of the animals?
I think we just need to balance it against those factors.
So where is the balance? Because that brings us back around a full circle, doesn't it? How many horses is an acceptable level to die during a year to make the balance swing towards entertainment and business interests?
Well, I suppose, but again, that doesn't really, there's not a formula that, I guess, answers your question. We're not sitting still, and for us, it's, I guess it's just to constantly improve is what we strive for.
So what's the trend then? Is the trend upwards, even or down?
Over the past, so we measure this from, we've got a really, a robust measure for the last 7 full seasons and the season to date, so 7.5 years. Over that period, it's been sort of within that same statistical range, I suppose.
So you're not improving?
Well, it depends. No, well, we're working on it, obviously, and but statistics.
But if you're in that same statistical range, if you're in that same statistical range, and you have been over the last 7 years, you're not improving.
Yeah, but I guess that the difficulty in statistics, when you've got a very small, numerator over a large denominator, it's hard to sort of affect a very, But I take your point. It would be nice to see the figures coming down, but as I say, it's statistically a small number.
Now, Martin Burns says in terms of horse deaths, the industry is self-regulating and it is meeting industry best practice. There is currently no independent welfare code specifically for thoroughbred horse racing, and Mr Burns says it's not needed. In terms of harness racing, we asked them about their death rates, and they say last racing season it recorded 4 deaths of horses.